The year was 2287 and Earth had reached far into the stars. Humans lived on dozens of worlds now, building cities and stations across the galaxy. They had met many alien races and learned to travel between stars like their ancestors once traveled between towns. But not everyone wanted the bright lights and endless technology. Some people chose the simple life, the hard life, the life that connected them to dirt and sky and the work of their own two hands. Jack Cooper was that kind of man. He lived on New Arizona, a planet terraformed to look like the old American Southwest back on Earth. Red canyons stretched across his view every morning. Dust devils danced in the distance. Twin moons hung in a sky that went purple at sunset. His ranch sat in the middle of nowhere, miles from the nearest settlement, surrounded by land that fought him every single day. The ranch was small, barely 200 acres of stubborn ground. Jack raised cattle there, special ones modified to breathe the thin air and eat the local plants. Every season was a struggle. Equipment broke down constantly because he could not afford the new models. Water pumps failed. Fences needed mending. The cattle got sick or wandered off. Some months Jack ate nothing but protein bars and synth meat because selling beef barely covered his costs. His house was a prefab unit 20 years old, the kind corporations gave to first-wave settlers and then forgot about. The walls were thin. The climate control worked half the time. Wind whistled through gaps in the door frame. But it was his, bought with every credit he could scrape together, and he owed nothing to anyone. That mattered to Jack more than comfort. He had come to New Arizona 5 years ago with dreams of building something real. Back on Earth he had been nobody, just another person lost in the crowds of the megacities. Out here a man could own land, could wake up and see actual horizons, could measure his worth by what he built with his own effort. The reality had been harder than the dream, much harder. But Jack was stubborn, and stubborn kept a man alive when smart would have quit years ago. The Apache Nation had settled beyond the canyon ridge, maybe 20 miles north of Jack's property. They had left Earth generations back, seeking space to preserve their culture and way of life. Out among the stars they found it. New Arizona was one of their chosen worlds. They built settlements that mixed old ways with new technology, creating something unique that corporations studied but could not copy. Jack had little contact with his Apache neighbors. He saw them sometimes at the trading post in Red Ridge, the only town within 100 miles. They were polite but distant. He was the same. Everyone out here respected boundaries and privacy. You did not ask questions about where people came from or why they chose the frontier. You just lived your life and let others live theirs. That evening started like any other. Jack had spent the day repairing a water recycler that kept shutting down. His hands were covered in grease and his back ached from crawling under the machine. The twin suns were setting, painting the canyon walls in shades of orange and red. He was thinking about food, maybe a hot shower if the heater cooperated, when he heard the screams. They came from the direction of the big canyon, the one that separated his land from the Apache territory. The sound was faint, carried on the wind, but unmistakable. Someone was in trouble. Jack did not hesitate. He grabbed his rifle from inside the house, not because he expected to shoot anything, but because the frontier taught you to be prepared. Then he ran toward the screaming. His boots kicked up red dust as he sprinted across the hardpan. The canyon edge was half a mile from his house. His lungs burned in the thin air. He was not young anymore, 35, and feeling every year of hard work in his joints. But he pushed himself harder, following the sound of voices now, multiple voices speaking fast in a language he did not understand. When he reached the canyon edge, he saw them immediately. 2 young women clung to a narrow ledge about 50 meters down the cliff face. Above them, the rock had collapsed, creating a fresh scar of broken stone that blocked any upward climb. Below them was nothing but air, and then jagged rocks at the canyon floor 100 meters further down. The ledge they were on was crumbling even as Jack watched. Small stones broke free and tumbled into the abyss. Jack recognized them vaguely from the trading post. Apache women, probably in their early 20s. Sisters maybe, they had similar features. One wore her hair long and braided. The other had cut hers short. Both were dressed in climbing gear, harnesses, and ropes, but their ropes hung uselessly above them where the cliff had given way. The woman with braids saw him and shouted something. Jack did not speak Apache, but the meaning was clear in her face. "Help us, please." The ledge shuddered and more stone fell away. Minutes, Jack thought. They have minutes before that ledge goes completely. His mind raced through options. He could call for help. His comm unit was back at the house. The Apache had rescue teams, professionals with hovering drones and gravity harnesses and all the equipment for exactly this situation. But running back to the house and making the call would take 10 minutes. Waiting for the rescue team to arrive would take at least 30 more. The ledge would not last that long. Jack could see cracks spreading through the stone like lightning frozen in rock. There was really only one choice, and it was a stupid one. Jack ran back to his transport vehicle parked near the canyon edge. He kept rope in the cargo bed. Good strong synthetic line rated for heavy loads. He had about 60 meters of it, not enough to reach the canyon floor, but enough to reach the ledge if he was careful. He tied one end to the vehicle's tow hitch, pulling the knot tight and checking it twice. Then he tied the other end around his own waist. No harness, no backup line, no safety equipment at all. Just rope and determination and the absolute certainty that if he did not act right now, 2 people would die. Jack backed up to the canyon edge and looked down at the women. They stared up at him with wide eyes. He gave them what he hoped was a confident nod, then turned around and began lowering himself over the edge. The rope bit into his hands immediately. His shoulders screamed as they took his full weight. This was insane, he thought, as his boots scrambled for purchase on the cliff face. This is how stupid people die. But his hands kept moving, lowering himself down meter by meter, and he did not stop. Jack's world narrowed to simple things. Hand over hand. Find a foothold. Do not look down. The cliff face was rough stone, worn smooth in places by centuries of wind. His fingers found cracks and edges. His boots scraped against rock, searching for anything solid. The rope burned his palms even through his work gloves. Sweat ran into his eyes. The thin air made every breath feel insufficient. He could hear the women below him speaking rapidly in Apache. Their voices were tight with fear. The ledge groaned and shifted. More stones broke free and clattered down into darkness. Jack forced himself to move faster, letting the rope slide through his hands in controlled drops. His shoulders felt like they were tearing apart. This was not how rope descent was supposed to work. He needed a proper harness, a belay device, anchors, all the equipment he did not have. 20 meters down. 30. The women were close now. Jack could see their faces clearly. The one with braided hair was older, maybe 25. The younger one with short hair looked barely 20. Both had the bronze skin and dark eyes common among the Apache people. Both were terrified, but trying hard not to show it. That courage struck Jack even in his own fear. They were not screaming or panicking. They were holding on with everything they had, buying time, refusing to give up. 40 meters. Jack's boots touched the ledge beside the older woman. The surface was maybe a meter wide and 3 meters long. Cracks ran through it like a spider web. The whole thing shifted under his added weight. Not good, Jack thought. Not good at all. The older woman grabbed his arm and spoke urgently. Jack shook his head. He did not understand the words, but he understood what needed to happen. He untied the rope from his own waist, fingers clumsy with exhaustion. Then he looped it around the woman, creating a makeshift harness under her arms and around her chest. His knots were rough but secure. Years of ranch work had taught him ropecraft. He caught her eyes and pointed up. She hesitated, clearly not wanting to leave her companion. Jack pointed again, more forcefully. One at a time, no choice. The woman nodded, tears on her face now, and called out something to the younger woman. Then Jack shouted up toward his vehicle. The transport was an old model, but it had basic voice recognition. Jack yelled the command to engage the winch system. Motors whined. The rope went taut. The older woman wrapped her hands around the line and pushed off the ledge. The rope took her weight and she began rising, spinning slowly as the winch pulled her up. Jack watched her ascend, holding his breath. The winch was designed for cargo, not people. If it failed now, she would fall. But the motors kept running and she kept rising. 30 seconds passed, 40. Then she disappeared over the canyon rim. Safe. One down. The ledge shuddered hard. A crack appeared right beneath Jack's feet. He could see into it, see the darkness inside the stone. This whole section was about to go. He turned to the younger woman. She was pressed against the cliff face, eyes locked on the crack. Jack moved carefully along the ledge toward her. Every step made the stone groan. He reached her just as another section of the ledge broke away completely, falling into the canyon with a sound like thunder. Now they were on a piece of rock maybe 1 meter wide and 2 meters long. Not enough space for 2 people. Definitely not enough stability. The rope came back down, lowered by the vehicle's winch. Jack grabbed it and turned to secure it around the younger woman. She was shaking now, shock setting in. He worked as fast as his exhausted hands allowed. Loop the rope. Create the harness. Check the knots. His fingers felt thick and stupid. Come on, he thought, come on. The rope was around her. Jack tugged it tight and prepared to signal the winch. Then he heard the sound. A crack like a gunshot. The ledge was splitting right down the middle. He had maybe 3 seconds before the whole thing collapsed. Jack grabbed the younger woman and pulled her against him. He wrapped one arm around her and the other around the rope. Then he kicked off from the ledge as hard as he could. They fell. For a terrible moment, there was nothing but empty air. Jack twisted his body, putting himself between the woman and the cliff wall. He shouted the winch command. The rope snapped taut. Jack's shoulder exploded with pain as the rope caught their combined weight. His arm felt like it tore from its socket. They swung toward the cliff face. Jack's back hit stone with crushing force. He felt ribs crack. His head bounced off rock. Stars burst across his vision, but he held on to the woman. Held on with everything he had. Behind them, the ledge collapsed completely. Tons of rock fell into the canyon. The sound was enormous, echoing off the walls. Dust billowed up around them. The rope spun them in circles as it absorbed the shock. Jack's grip was slipping. His broken body was failing. He could not hold on much longer. The winch engaged again. They began rising. Every meter was agony. Jack's shoulder was definitely dislocated. Something was wrong inside his chest. Sharp pain with every breath. Blood ran down his face from where his head had struck the wall. But the woman was safe in his arms. She was crying now, saying something over and over. Jack could not focus on the words. He just held on. They reached the top of the canyon. Hands grabbed them, pulling them over the edge. Jack saw the older woman, saw tears streaming down her face. She was shouting into a comm device. Other voices responded. Help was coming. Jack tried to say something, but his vision was going dark at the edges. He fell onto his back on solid ground. The sky above was turning purple with evening. Both moons were visible now, hanging like pale coins. The younger woman knelt beside him, still crying. The older one joined her. They were both talking to him, but the words were fading. Jack felt very cold suddenly. Shock, some distant part of his mind said. You are going into shock. He heard vehicles approaching. Saw lights in his peripheral vision. Apache rescue teams finally arriving. Too late to help with the rescue, but in time for the aftermath. Someone was scanning him with medical equipment. He heard urgent voices speaking in Apache and then in English. Critical condition. Multiple fractures. Internal bleeding. Need immediate transport. They lifted him onto a stretcher. The movement sent fresh waves of agony through his body. Jack gasped and his vision went completely dark for a moment. When it came back, he saw the older woman holding his hand. She was saying something, the same words over and over. Thank you. That much he understood. Thank you. Jack tried to respond, but his mouth would not work properly. The world was spinning now. He felt the stretcher being loaded into a medical transport. Heard the engines powering up. The older woman was still there, still holding his hand. Her sister beside her, both safe. That was good, Jack thought as consciousness slipped away. That was worth it. Then there was nothing but darkness and the distant sound of engines carrying him toward help that might come too late. Jack woke to softness. That was the first surprise. His entire adult life had been hard surfaces, cheap mattresses, the ground itself when work demanded it. This was different. He was lying on something that seemed to adjust to his body, supporting him perfectly. The second surprise was the absence of pain. His shoulder had been screaming. His ribs had been broken. Now there was only a dull ache, distant and manageable. He opened his eyes slowly. The ceiling above him was white and curved, with light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Medical equipment surrounded his bed, but it was unlike anything he had seen before. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing what he guessed were his vital signs. Lines of text scrolled past in Apache and English. Everything looked organic somehow, grown rather than built. A woman sat in a chair beside his bed. She wore traditional Apache clothing mixed with modern materials, a blend of buckskin and smart fabric that seemed impossible but worked. Her hair was silver and tied back. Her face was weathered with age, but her eyes were sharp and kind. She noticed he was awake and smiled. She spoke in English, her accent careful and precise. Welcome back, Jack Cooper. You have been unconscious for 3 days. The nanomachines needed time to repair the damage to your body. Nanomachines. Jack had heard of them, but never imagined he would have them inside him. They were expensive cutting-edge medical technology that rebuilt damaged tissue at the cellular level. His ranch insurance would never cover something like that. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. The woman stood and brought him water in a cup that seemed made of living wood. The water was cool and tasted faintly of minerals. Jack drank slowly, his mind racing. 3 days unconscious, nanomachines, where was he? How much was this going to cost? His ranch could not afford this kind of care. He would be in debt for the rest of his life. The door opened and people entered. Jack recognized the 2 young women immediately. Maya and Luna. He had learned their names from documents he signed at the trading post months ago. They looked completely unharmed. The older one, Maya, smiled at him with obvious relief. The younger one, Luna, had tears in her eyes again. Behind them came a man who commanded attention without trying. He was perhaps 60 years old, with long hair going silver. He wore traditional clothing mixed with modern pieces, beaded leather over smart fabric. His face was strong and weathered. His eyes studied Jack with an intensity that made him want to look away. This man carried authority like other men carried weight. The silver-haired woman gestured to him. "This is Chief William Redhawk. Maya and Luna are his daughters. You saved their lives." Jack tried to sit up, but his body was not ready. The chief raised a hand, stopping him. He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down with the easy grace of someone comfortable in his own skin. For a long moment he just looked at Jack, those dark eyes seeming to see everything. When he spoke, his voice was deep and measured. "Jack Cooper, you risked your life for my daughters. You had no equipment, no training for mountain rescue, no reason to believe you would survive. Yet you climbed down that cliff without hesitation. Why?" Jack's mouth was dry again despite the water. He thought about the question. Why had he done it? The honest answer seemed too simple. They needed help. There was no time to wait for anyone else. The chief nodded slowly, as if this answer confirmed something he already knew. "You could have called our rescue teams. They have equipment designed for exactly that situation. Gravity harnesses, hovering drones, everything needed to extract people safely. The rational choice would have been to make that call and let professionals handle it." Jack shook his head slightly. The ledge was breaking apart. They had maybe minutes. "Your teams could not have reached them in time." The chief leaned forward. "That is correct. Our rescue coordinator ran the numbers afterward. From the time you arrived at the canyon edge to the time the ledge collapsed completely was 8 minutes. Our nearest team was 40 minutes away. If you had made the call and waited, my daughters would have died." He paused, letting that sink in. "But you could not have known that with certainty. You made a choice based on instinct and limited information. You risked everything on a guess that time was critical. That takes a special kind of courage." Maya spoke up from where she stood with her sister. "You saved us, Jack. You broke your body to keep us alive. Our people do not forget such debts." Jack felt uncomfortable with the attention. He had done what anyone would do, or what anyone should do. He tried to say this, but the chief raised his hand again. "Not anyone," Chief Redhawk said quietly. "Many would have made the safe choice. Called for help and waited. Protected themselves from blame if things went wrong. You chose the dangerous path because it was the right path. That reveals character." He stood and placed his hand on Jack's uninjured shoulder. The gesture felt significant somehow, formal. "The Apache people honor those who demonstrate true courage and selflessness. When you have healed completely, I ask that you come to our settlement. There are things we must discuss about your future." Jack wanted to protest. He owed money now. Massive medical bills he could never pay. His ranch was probably falling apart without him there. He had no future beyond trying to survive another season, but the chief's expression stopped the words in his throat. Maya moved closer to the bed. "Our father is a man of his word, Jack. He sees something in you that is worth investing in. Please do not refuse his offer without at least hearing what he has to say." Luna nodded agreement, wiping at her eyes. "You gave us our lives back. Let us give you something in return." The chief turned to leave but paused at the door. "The medical care you have received is already paid for. You owe nothing. Your ranch is being maintained by our people while you recover. Your cattle are fed and your equipment is being repaired. These are not favors requiring repayment. These are simple acts of gratitude." He looked back at Jack with those penetrating eyes. "Heal well, Jack Cooper. When you are ready, we will speak of opportunities, not debts. The Apache Nation believes in investing in people of character. You have proven yours beyond any doubt." Then he was gone, Maya and Luna following after offering soft words of thanks. The silver-haired healer returned to her chair and checked the holographic displays. Jack lay back against the impossibly comfortable bed and tried to process what had just happened. A chief of the Apache Nation had personally come to see him. His medical bills were paid. His ranch was being cared for. And there was some kind of offer waiting for him. Something about his future. He thought about the cliff, about the moment he had decided to climb down with nothing but rope and determination. It had seemed like such a simple choice at the time. Help people who needed help. Now apparently that choice had consequences far beyond anything he imagined. The healer noticed his troubled expression. Do not worry so much, Jack Cooper. Chief Redhawk is not a man who tricks or manipulates. If he says he sees something in you, then he does. If he offers you an opportunity, it will be real and genuine. Our people value honesty above all things. Jack wanted to believe that. He had lived too long on the edge of failure to trust good fortune easily. But something about the chief's presence, about the sincerity in Maya and Luna's faces, made him think maybe this time the universe was offering him a real chance. He closed his eyes and let the nanomachines continue their work. Whatever the future held, he would need to be fully healed to face it. Part 4-2. Weeks later, Jack stood at the entrance to the Apache settlement feeling completely out of place. The healer had declared him fully recovered the day before. The nanomachines had done their work and then dissolved harmlessly into his bloodstream. His ribs were whole. His shoulder moved without pain. Even the scars on his hands from the rope burns had faded to almost nothing. He felt better than he had in years, stronger somehow, like the machines had fixed problems he had not even known existed. A transport had brought him from the medical facility to the settlement. The driver was a young Apache man who spoke little but smiled often. The drive took an hour through canyon country that took Jack's breath away. Red rock formations rose like ancient monuments. Valleys of purple sage stretched between them. It was beautiful and harsh, exactly the kind of land that made you feel small and temporary. The settlement itself was like nothing Jack had expected. He had pictured either a traditional village or a modern town. This was both and neither. Traditional hogans stood beside buildings made of materials that seemed alive, walls that shifted colors with the temperature, and roofs covered in solar panels shaped like leaves. Gardens grew everywhere, mixing old agricultural methods with hydroponics and gene-modified plants. Children played in courtyards, their games involving both handmade toys and holographic companions that flickered in and out of existence. Chief Redhawk waited for him at what appeared to be the main community building. The structure was circular, built from smart glass that showed images of landscapes from different worlds. The chief wore simpler clothing today, just dark pants and a shirt with traditional patterns woven into the fabric. He smiled when he saw Jack and offered his hand in the earthway. They shook and the chief gestured toward the building. Come, the council is waiting to meet you, council. That word made Jack nervous. He followed the chief through doors that opened silently at their approach. Inside was a large circular room with a domed ceiling. Holographic stars moved across the dome, showing constellations from different worlds. A circle of chairs filled the center of the room. Seated in them were men and women of various ages, all Apache, all watching Jack with expressions ranging from curiosity to serious evaluation. The chief guided Jack to an empty chair and sat beside him. An older woman directly across the circle spoke first. Her voice was gentle but carried authority that demanded attention. Jack Cooper, I'm Helen Whitehorse, keeper of our agricultural programs. We have studied your ranch operations over the past 3 years through public records and satellite observation. You work harder than most men with twice the resources. You harm no one, ask for no charity, and maintain your land with respect. These things speak well of your character. Another elder, a man with a face carved by decades of sun and wind, nodded. I am Joseph Blackbear, coordinator of our expansion programs. What you did for the chief's daughters confirmed what we already suspected about you. You are a man who acts according to principle, not calculation. This is rare, especially among those who struggle as you have struggled. Jack felt heat rising to his face. These people had been watching him, studying him. It felt invasive and flattering at the same time. He started to speak, but the chief gestured for patience. Chief Redhawk stood, and everyone's attention shifted to him. Jack Cooper, the Apache Nation is at a crossroads. We have been offered development rights to 3 new frontier worlds. These planets are rich in resources but completely undeveloped. Corporations want to partner with us. offering money and equipment in exchange for access to these resources. He paused, his expression troubled. But we have seen what corporate partnerships do. They promise respect for our culture and then slowly erode it. They speak of sustainability and then strip worlds bare. We need different partners. We need people who understand that profit is not the only measure of success. Helen Whitehorse continued the explanation. We want to build settlements on these new worlds that honor both our traditions and the future. Agriculture that feeds people without destroying the land. Communities that preserve culture while embracing beneficial technology. This requires partners who share our values. Joseph Blackbear leaned forward. We are offering you a stake in our expansion, Jack Cooper. Land on New Mesa, our newest colony world. Not a small ranch like you have now, but thousands of acres in a fertile valley. Equipment, livestock, resources to build something that will last generations. In exchange, you would work with our agricultural specialists. Your knowledge combined with ours. Your methods mixed with our traditions. Jack's mind went blank. This could not be real. People did not offer such things to failed ranchers who barely survived season to season. There had to be a catch, some hidden cost he was not seeing. He found his voice rough with confusion. Why, I am nobody. Just a man who could not make his own ranch work. Why would you trust me with something so important? The chief sat back down and looked Jack straight in the eyes. Because 3 years ago you came to New Arizona with almost nothing. You bought the worst land available because it was all you could afford. Everyone said you would fail within a year. But you did not fail. You worked yourself to exhaustion every single day. You learned from mistakes. You adapted, and you never once complained or blamed anyone else for your difficulties. Maya and Luna entered the room, and Jack realized they must have been waiting outside. Maya spoke, her voice warm. You showed us determination and integrity, Jack. Then when the moment came to show your heart, you did not hesitate. You risked everything for people you barely knew. That is exactly the kind of person we want building our future. Luna added, corporations send us people who see opportunities for profit. We need people who see opportunities for community. You have proven you are that person. Jack shook his head, overwhelmed. I could fail. I could waste everything you invest in me. I have no guarantee I can succeed at something this big. Chief Redhawk smiled, and it was not unkind. None of us have guarantees, Jack. But we have watched how you respond to failure. You learn. You adjust. You keep trying. And when something matters more than your own safety, you act without counting the cost. These qualities are worth more than any expertise or experience. Helen Whitehorse stood and walked to Jack's chair. She placed her hand on his shoulder in the same formal gesture the chief had used at the medical facility. New Mesa needs someone who will treat the land with respect, who will teach others not just techniques but values, who will build something meant to last rather than something meant to maximize immediate returns. You are that person. Joseph Blackbear joined her. This is not charity, Jack Cooper. This is investment in someone who has proven their worth. We are not saving you from failure. We are giving you resources equal to your character. What you do with those resources will be up to you, but we believe you will do something meaningful. The other council members stood as well, forming a circle around Jack's chair. Each placed a hand on his shoulders or head, a gesture that felt ancient and sacred. They spoke in Apache, words Jack did not understand but felt the weight of. He realized this was some kind of formal ceremony, an acceptance into their community in a way that transcended simple business partnership. Chief Redhawk spoke last, his hand resting on Jack's head. You saved my daughters. You proved your courage and your heart. Now we offer you a chance to save yourself, to build the life you deserve. Will you accept our partnership? Jack felt tears on his face and did not care. For years he had struggled alone, convinced that success was something you achieved through pure individual effort. Now these people were offering him something different: community, partnership, a chance to be part of something larger than his own survival. He stood, facing the chief. I accept, and I swear I will honor your trust. I will work as hard for this opportunity as I have worked for anything in my life. The chief smiled and embraced him. The council members followed, each offering words in English or Apache. Maya hugged him tightly. Luna did the same. Jack felt something breaking open inside his chest, some wall he had built around himself during all those years of isolation and struggle. When the ceremony ended, Chief Redhawk led him to a table where holographic displays showed New Mesa. The planet hung in the air, rotating slowly. Continents of red and amber rock, oceans smaller than Earth's but still vast. Two suns giving the world constant warmth. The chief pointed to a valley system near the equator. This will be your land, Jack Cooper. 15,000 acres. Water rights from underground aquifers. Soil already tested and certified for Earth crops. We will provide initial livestock, equipment, and facilities. In return, you will help us develop sustainable farming methods that combine your experience with our knowledge. He looked at Jack seriously. This will be harder than anything you have done. New Mesa is beautiful but unforgiving. You will fail sometimes. Equipment will break. Crops will die. Nothing is guaranteed. But you will not be alone. We will work together. Jack studied the holographic valley. His future spread out in light and data. It was terrifying and exhilarating. A chance to prove himself. A chance to build something real. A chance to be part of a community that valued what he valued. He looked at the chief and nodded. When do we start? The transport ship was called Morning Star, a vessel that made Jack feel like a primitive seeing magic for the first time. The hull curved in ways that seemed impossible, decorated with patterns that glowed faintly in the dark. Inside, traditional Apache designs covered walls made of materials that shifted temperature to keep passengers comfortable. The engines used quantum drives that bent space itself, turning a journey that should take months into a 3-week trip. Jack had his own cabin, small but more luxurious than anywhere he had ever lived. A bed that adjusted to his body. A viewport showing the stars streaming past as the ship jumped between systems. A small food processor that could create meals from basic ingredients. He felt out of place among such wealth, but Maya and Luna helped him adjust. They traveled with him, assigned as his liaisons and teachers. During the journey, they spent hours each day teaching him about Apache history and philosophy. They sat in the observation deck, a circular room with transparent walls that made you feel like you were floating in space itself, and they told him stories. Maya explained how the Apache people had left Earth 3 generations back. Our ancestors were tired of being told to abandon our culture to succeed in modern society. They were tired of reservations and poverty and the slow erosion of everything that made us who we are. When the first colony ships became available, several Apache communities pooled resources and bought passage to the stars. Luna continued the history. They chose frontier worlds, places that were hard but beautiful. They wanted space to preserve traditions without outside pressure. And they succeeded. Our settlements thrive because we combine respect for the old ways with understanding of new technology. Jack listened and learned. He learned about the concept of balance, taking only what you need and giving back what you can. He learned about community responsibility, where individual success was measured by how it benefited everyone. He learned about the long view, making decisions based on effects 7 generations into the future rather than immediate profit. It was different from how he had been raised. Earth cities taught you to compete, to grab what you could, to focus on your own survival. But sitting there with Maya and Luna, watching alien stars stream past, Jack found himself drawn to these ideas. They matched something inside him, some instinct he had always followed without understanding why. New Mesa appeared in the viewport on the 20th day of travel. Jack pressed his face to the transparent wall like a child, staring at his new home. The planet was smaller than Earth but still massive from space. 2 suns orbited each other nearby, one orange and one yellow, bathing the world in constant warm light. The continents were red and amber, desert and canyon country on a scale that dwarfed New Arizona. Smaller oceans sparkled blue between the landmasses. Maya stood beside him, pointing out features. The Apache settlements are here in the northern plateau region. Your valley is here, near the equator where the temperature is most stable. We have already established several small communities, but huge areas remain untouched. The ship descended through purple skies. Jack saw mountain ranges that dwarfed anything on Earth, canyons that could swallow cities, valleys where rivers carved paths through stone over millions of years. It was beautiful and terrifying. This world was ancient and powerful, and he was about to try making it productive. They landed at a small spaceport near the northern settlements. Chief Red Hawk waited on the landing platform, along with dozens of Apache families who had come to welcome the new arrivals. Jack stepped off the ship and immediately felt the difference. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth normal. The air was thinner but breathable. The warmth from the twin suns felt like summer at noon even though local time was morning. The chief embraced Jack in the Apache way, hands on shoulders. Welcome to New Mesa, Jack Cooper. Welcome home. Home. The word struck Jack hard. He had not thought of anywhere as home since leaving Earth. New Arizona had been a place to survive, not a place to belong. But looking at the chief's sincere expression, at Maya and Luna smiling beside him, at the families gathered to welcome him, Jack felt something shift inside. They traveled by ground transport to Jack's Valley, a 3-hour journey through terrain that left him speechless. The vehicle was large enough for 12 people and moved on magnetic suspension, gliding smoothly over rough ground. Chief Red Hawk rode with them, pointing out features of the landscape and explaining the planet's ecology. New Mesa is 4 billion years old, the chief said. The geology is stable, no major tectonic activity. The ecosystems evolved separately from Earth but are compatible with our biology. The native plants are edible, though not nutritious enough to sustain us long term. The native animals are mostly small, nothing dangerous to humans. Jack watched the red landscape roll past. Formations of stone rose in impossible shapes carved by wind and water over eons. Valleys of purple vegetation stretched between them. Strange birds with 4 wings circled overhead. Everything was alien and familiar at once, reminding him of Earth deserts but distinctly its own world. They crested a ridge and Jack saw his valley spread below. His breath caught. The land stretched for miles, a basin between mountain walls with a river running through its center. The soil was rich red-brown, darker than the surrounding desert. Vegetation grew thick along the riverbanks. In the distance he could see the beginning of his facilities, prefabricated buildings arranged in a practical layout. The transport descended into the valley and Jack felt his heart pounding. This was real. This was happening. All this land, all these resources, given to him based on trust and the belief that he would use them well. They stopped near the main facility building. Jack stepped out and his boots touched New Mesa soil for the first time. He knelt and ran his fingers through the dirt. It was grainy, mineral-rich, slightly warm from the twin suns. Good soil, he could work with this. Maya and Luna showed him around the facilities. The main building housed living quarters for up to 20 people, processing equipment for crops, storage silos, and a command center with computers that monitored everything from soil moisture to weather patterns. The livestock pens were already occupied with cattle modified for New Mesa's environment, about 200 head to start. Equipment filled a large barn, harvesters, planters, irrigation systems, all of it newer and better than anything Jack had seen outside of corporate farms. Solar panels covered every roof, generating more power than he could possibly use. Water pumps connected to the underground aquifers, capable of irrigating the entire valley if needed. Jack walked through it all in a daze. The value of everything here exceeded his entire life's earnings. The Apache Nation had invested massive resources in this project. In him, the weight of that trust felt crushing. Chief Red Hawk found him standing alone near the river, staring at the water flowing past. The chief stood beside him in comfortable silence for a moment before speaking. Feeling overwhelmed? Jack nodded. I do not deserve this. I have not earned it. The chief picked up a stone and tossed it into the river. You are thinking about this wrong, Jack. This is not a reward for past actions. This is an investment in future potential. We are not giving you these resources because of what you have done. We are giving them because of what we believe you will do. He looked at Jack seriously. You will fail sometimes. Crops will die. Equipment will break. Markets will shift. These things are inevitable. But we believe you will learn from failures, adapt, and keep trying. We believe you will treat this land and these resources with respect. We believe you will build something meaningful rather than something merely profitable. Jack met his eyes. What if I prove you wrong? What if I cannot handle this? Chief Red Hawk smiled. Then we will help you learn until you can. This is partnership, Jack. You are not alone. We have agricultural specialists who will work with you, engineers who will maintain equipment, teachers who will help train the next generation. Your job is not to be perfect. Your job is to try your best and be honest about both successes and failures. He placed his hand on Jack's shoulder again, that formal gesture that seemed to carry weight beyond the simple touch. The first year will be the hardest. You will work longer hours than you thought possible. You will face problems you have never encountered, but you will not face them alone. We are building this together. That evening, as the twin suns set and turned the sky orange and purple and red, Jack stood on the porch of his new home and looked out over his valley. Maya and Luna had returned to the northern settlements but would be back in a few days with the first group of agricultural specialists. Chief Red Hawk had left him with supplies and a communication device that would reach the settlements anytime he needed help. Jack was alone with his thoughts and his future. The valley stretched before him in the fading light. Thousands of acres of possibility. The river sang its ancient song. The alien birds called out in voices like chimes. Everything smelled of dust and growing things. He thought about the cliff, about the moment he decided to climb down with nothing but rope and hope. That choice had led him here, to this valley, to this chance at a real life. Maybe the universe rewarded those who acted without counting the cost. The first year on New Mesa was exactly as hard as Chief Red Hawk had promised, maybe harder. Jack woke before the twin suns rose and worked until long after they set. His body ached in new ways every day. The lighter gravity helped, but the thin air made every task more exhausting. Some nights he fell into bed too tired to eat, sleeping in his work clothes because undressing required energy he did not have. But he was not alone, and that made all the difference. Maya returned within a week, bringing 3 Apache agricultural specialists with her. They were not there to tell Jack what to do but to work alongside him, combining their knowledge with his experience. Together they learned New Mesa's secrets. The soil was rich but strange. Earth crops grew differently here, some thriving beyond expectation while others failed completely. Wheat loved the mineral content and grew tall and strong. Corn struggled until they modified the irrigation schedule. Vegetables needed shade from the intense twin sun radiation. They learned through trial and error, keeping detailed records of every success and failure. Maya became Jack's primary partner in the work. She had studied xenobotany, the science of how earth plants adapted to alien worlds. She understood genetics and soil chemistry in ways that made Jack's head spin. But she listened when he talked about rotation schedules and pest management, techniques learned from years of practical experience. They taught each other, and the valley began to transform. The cattle adapted well. The modified breed handled the thin air and local vegetation without problems. They grazed the valley floor, fertilizing the soil naturally. Jack taught the younger Apache workers how to manage herds, how to spot sickness early, how to rotate grazing areas to prevent overuse. They taught him about genetic monitoring and health tracking systems that used sensors to watch every animal's vital signs. Luna arrived 3 months in, bringing students with her. She had designed an educational program that brought together young people from both Apache settlements and other human colonies. The goal was teaching sustainable agriculture through hands-on experience. The Valley Ranch became a living classroom. Jack found himself teaching classes, something he had never imagined doing. He stood in front of a dozen teenagers and explained soil preparation, planting techniques, equipment maintenance. He felt awkward at first, stumbling over words, wondering what these kids could possibly learn from a failed rancher. But they listened intently, asked good questions, and worked hard in the fields. Their enthusiasm reminded Jack why this all mattered. The students were not just Apache. Luna had recruited from various human settlements across New Mesa, creating a diverse group that brought different perspectives. There was a girl named Claire whose parents ran a hydroponics facility, a boy named Peter from a mining family who wanted to switch to agriculture, twins named Sam and Sophie who just loved growing things. They all worked together, learning both traditional Apache methods and modern techniques. Jack discovered he enjoyed teaching, breaking down complex tasks into simple steps, watching understanding dawn on young faces, seeing students master skills and take pride in their work. It gave meaning to his own struggles. Every mistake he had made on New Arizona became a lesson he could pass on. Every technique he had learned through hard experience became knowledge he could share. The valley began producing within 6 months. The first wheat harvest exceeded all projections. The grain was high quality, perfect for both human consumption and export to other colonies. Jack stood in the processing facility watching the harvesters work, golden grain pouring into storage silos, and felt something he had not felt in years. Pride, accomplishment, the sense that his work mattered. Chief Red Hawk visited regularly, always arriving unannounced, always finding Jack in the middle of some task. The chief would work alongside him for a few hours, never saying much, just being present. Jack came to treasure those visits. The chief's quiet approval meant more than any words could convey. One evening, after a particularly long day, the chief and Jack sat on the porch watching the twin suns set. The valley stretched before them, transformed from the bare land it had been a year ago. Fields of crops swayed in the evening breeze. Cattle grazed peacefully. The river reflected orange and purple light. Chief Redhawk spoke quietly. "You have exceeded our expectations, Jack Cooper. This valley produces more than we projected. The students learn faster here than in any classroom. You have built something meaningful." Jack shook his head. "I had help. Maya's knowledge, Luna's teaching methods, all the specialists and students. This is not my achievement alone," the chief smiled. "That is exactly why you succeed. You understand that community creates more than individuals. Many people given these resources would have kept the knowledge to themselves, built an empire for personal profit. You share everything freely." He stood and placed his hand on Jack's shoulder. "The council has made a decision. We want to expand this model to other valleys on New Mesa. Create multiple agricultural centers, each teaching and producing, each combining traditional wisdom with modern methods. We want you to oversee the program." Jack felt that familiar overwhelm rising again. "I barely know what I am doing here. How can I oversee multiple sites?" The chief laughed, a rare sound. "You will learn same as you learned everything else. Through mistakes and adaptation. Through partnership and community. We are not asking you to be perfect, Jack. We are asking you to be yourself. The person who climbs down cliffs when people need help." Over the following months, the Valley Ranch became the model for New Mesa's agricultural development. 3 more valleys were selected for similar projects. Jack helped choose the locations, trained the managers, shared everything he had learned. Each new site was given to people who demonstrated character and commitment, rather than those with the most experience or money. Maya remained his closest partner. They worked together daily, solving problems and developing new techniques. Jack noticed how easily they communicated, how they anticipated each other's thoughts, how their different strengths complemented each other perfectly. Something deeper than professional respect was growing between them, though neither spoke of it directly. The students kept coming. Luna's program expanded to accept 50 students per season. They lived at the Valley Ranch for 3 months, learning every aspect of sustainable farming. Some went on to start their own farms. Others brought knowledge back to their communities. All of them carried forward the idea that agriculture could be both productive and respectful of the land. Jack's reputation spread beyond New Mesa. Other frontier colonies heard about the Apache agricultural program and sent representatives to learn. Jack found himself meeting with delegations from a dozen worlds, explaining their methods, sharing their successes and failures. He was uncomfortable with the attention but understood its importance. One delegation came from a corporate farming world where profits had destroyed the soil and poisoned the water. Their representative, a woman named Karen who looked exhausted and defeated, asked Jack how they had avoided the same fate. Jack thought carefully before answering. "We measure success differently, not by how much we produce this season, but by whether the land will still be productive 7 generations from now, not by profit margins but by community well-being, not by individual wealth but by collective thriving." Karen nodded slowly. "Our corporate overlords would call that inefficient." Jack smiled. "Maybe, but our valley gets more productive every year while your world gets less. Our people are healthy and satisfied while yours are exhausted and sick. Which system is truly efficient?" She had no answer for that, but she stayed for 2 weeks learning their methods. When she left, she carried seeds, techniques, and hoped that her world could change. The valley had transformed Jack as much as he had transformed the valley. The desperate, isolated man who barely survived on New Arizona was gone. In his place was someone confident in his skills, secure in his community, and certain of his purpose. He woke each morning eager to work, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. The difference was everything. Maya found him one evening by the river, watching the water flow past in the fading light. She sat beside him and they were quiet together for a while. Then she spoke softly. "My father saw this in you from the beginning. He knew what you could become if given the chance. I see it too now. You are exactly where you belong." Jack looked at her, at the woman who had become essential to his life in ways he was only beginning to understand. "I used to think success meant not needing anyone, being self-sufficient and independent. Now I know that was wrong. Real success is being part of something larger, contributing to community, building things that outlast you." Maya smiled and took his hand. "You have learned the most important lesson. You are Apache now in everything but blood." They sat together as the twin moons rose. two people from different backgrounds who had found common purpose. The valley stretched around them, productive and beautiful, a testament to what humans could achieve when they worked together toward something meaningful. Jack thought about the cliff again, that moment of choice that had changed everything. He had risked his life without thinking and gained a life worth living in return. The news reached New Mesa on a cold morning during the second year of operations. Ships had detected unknown vessels entering the system, bearing identification codes from the Galactic Council. This was significant because the Council rarely visited human colonies unless something important required their attention. Chief Redhawk called Jack to the northern settlements for an emergency meeting. Jack arrived to find the council chambers filled with Apache leaders, all looking concerned. The chief explained the situation quickly. 3 alien ambassadors were coming to observe New Mesa's agricultural program. They represented 3 different species, each with their own reasons for the visit. The Zentari were beings of living crystal who valued logic and efficiency above everything else. They had heard about New Mesa's agricultural output and wanted to study the methods. The Vrin were a warrior culture who respected strength and honor. They were interested in the partnership between Apache and colonists. The Koran were peaceful traders with a reputation for fairness. They saw business opportunities in New Mesa's sustainable model. Chief Redhawk looked at Jack seriously. They specifically asked to meet you. Word of our program has reached the Galactic Council, and your role in it has not gone unnoticed. You are the bridge between our cultures, the symbol of what this colony represents. Jack felt his stomach drop. I am just a farmer. I am not qualified to represent humanity to alien species. The chief smiled slightly. You represented humanity when you climbed down that cliff. You represent it every day through your work and your character. These ambassadors want to see what makes our system work. You are central to that. The ambassadors arrived 3 days later. Their ships were magnificent, each reflecting the culture that built it. The Zentari vessel was geometric perfection, all sharp angles and crystalline surfaces. The Vrin ship was massive and aggressive-looking, covered in armor plating and weapon systems. The Koran craft was organic in shape, flowing curves that seemed alive. Jack stood with Chief Redhawk and the Council as the ambassadors disembarked at the spaceport. The Zentari ambassador was called Coordinator Zen, a being about 2 meters tall made entirely of translucent crystal that shifted colors as it moved. Light refracted through its body in rainbow patterns. When it spoke, the sound was like wind chimes. The Vrin ambassador was Warlord Kresh, easily 3 meters tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like red scales. Battle scars marked its body. Its eyes were yellow and intense. When it moved, muscles rippled under the scales with obvious power. Its voice was deep and rumbling. The Koran ambassador was Elder Harmonist Prill, the smallest of the 3 at only 1.5 meters tall. It had 4 arms, soft gray skin, and large dark eyes that radiated kindness. Its movements were graceful and deliberate. When it spoke, the voice was melodic and soothing. Coordinator Zen approached Jack first, studying him with what might have been curiosity. Its crystalline body chimed softly. You are Jack Cooper, the human who initiated this agricultural program. Our analysis indicates your methods produce 17% more yield than standard human farming, while using 23% fewer resources. Please explain this efficiency. Jack glanced at Chief Redhawk, who nodded encouragement. We focus on working with the land instead of forcing it to produce. We rotate crops to maintain soil health. We use natural fertilizers from livestock. We plant native vegetation alongside earth crops to prevent erosion. The land stays healthy so it produces more over time. The Zentari tilted its crystalline head. But this requires longer planning cycles and delayed gratification. Most species optimize for immediate returns. Your approach is statistically unusual. Jack smiled. Maybe unusual, but it works. Our valley gets more productive every year, while farms that chase immediate profits deplete their soil and decline. Which approach is truly optimal? Coordinator Zen made a sound like crystals rubbing together, which Jack hoped was approval. An interesting logical framework. Short-term optimization versus long-term sustainability. The mathematics support your position. Warlord Kresh stepped forward, its massive presence intimidating despite clear efforts at friendliness. I care less about mathematics and more about honor. You risked your life to save the chief's daughters without hesitation or calculation. This is warrior behavior. You have earned respect. The Vrin gestured toward the valley in the distance. Among my people, such courage would be rewarded with land and resources same as here. But most species view courage as foolishness unless it serves immediate gain. The Apache understand what my people understand. Honor matters more than profit. Jack felt himself relaxing slightly. These aliens were strange, but their values were not incomprehensible. The Apache taught me that community success matters more than individual success. Helping each other creates strength that benefits everyone. Warlord Kresh nodded, a very human gesture. Exactly. A warrior fights not for personal glory but for the clan. Your actions demonstrate this understanding. You are a warrior of the land. Elder Harmonist Prill approached with gentle movements. Its forearms moved in patterns that seemed to carry meaning. Its voice was warm. What you have built here is rare in the galaxy. Most species expand through conquest or exploitation. They take from worlds and give nothing back. They view other cultures as competition rather than potential partners. The Koran gestured to encompass the entire settlement. The Apache preserved their cultural identity while embracing beneficial progress. Jack Cooper bridges different human cultures without dominating or being dominated. This is the model the galaxy needs. Partnership instead of conquest. Respect instead of exploitation. The ambassadors spent 2 weeks on New Mesa, observing every aspect of the agricultural program. They visited the Valley Ranch and watched students learning. They examined crop rotation schedules and soil health data. They interviewed farmers and students and council members. They were thorough and genuinely interested. Jack accompanied them throughout, answering endless questions. Coordinator Zen wanted detailed explanations of every technique, analyzing everything through mathematical frameworks. Warlord Kresh wanted to understand the social dynamics, how different cultures work together without conflict. Elder Harmonist Prill focused on the philosophical foundations, the values that guided decisions. One evening, Jack sat with all 3 ambassadors on the porch of the Valley Ranch. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in colors that seemed designed to impress alien visitors. The ambassadors had requested this informal meeting, wanting to understand Jack's perspective away from official settings. Coordinator Zen spoke first. Your decision to rescue the chief's daughters was statistically suboptimal. Proper protocol was to alert rescue services and wait. By descending the cliff yourself, you increased risk of death from 73% to 91%, based on available equipment and conditions. Why did you choose the inferior option? Jack thought about how to explain instinct to a being of pure logic. The ledge was collapsing. Waiting for proper help meant the women would definitely die. Climbing down myself meant we all might die, but we also might all survive. I chose the option that gave everyone a chance. The Zentari chimed thoughtfully. So you calculated probable outcomes and selected the scenario with the highest chance of overall survival, accepting increased personal risk to improve collective probability. This is logical when viewed correctly. Warlord Kresh laughed, a sound like grinding stones. The crystal being tries to turn courage into mathematics. Some things cannot be calculated, only acted upon. Jack Cooper saw people in danger and responded as a warrior responds. With action, not analysis. Elder Harmonist Prill raised 2 of its forearms, and what Jack had learned was a gesture of appreciation. Both perspectives have merit. Jack acted from instinct and compassion. But that instinct was wise, leading to the optimal outcome through non-analytical means. The heart and the mind can reach the same conclusion through different paths. The Koran looked at Jack with those large, dark eyes. What you have built here demonstrates the same principle on a larger scale. You combine Apache wisdom with modern methods, traditional agriculture with advanced technology, different cultures with common purpose. You bridge divides through respect and partnership. Jack felt uncomfortable being the focus of so much attention. I just do what seems right. The Apache gave me a chance when I had nothing. I try to honor that gift by working hard and helping others. Coordinator Zen's crystal body shifted to a deep blue color. Precisely. You operate from principles rather than calculations. Integrity over optimization. Community over individual gain. These values create systems that sustain, rather than systems that extract and collapse. Warlord Kresh nodded agreement. Your way builds strength that lasts. My people tried the conquest path long ago. We took what we wanted from weaker species and called it strength. But taking creates enemies and emptiness. Building creates allies and fulfillment. We learned this lesson slowly and painfully. Elder Harmonist Prill spoke softly. The galaxy needs more examples of what you have created here. Most species expand into space carrying the same competitive mindsets that caused problems on their homeworlds. They repeat mistakes on a larger scale. 5 years had passed since Jack climbed down that cliff on New Arizona. Standing on the porch of his home on New Mesa, watching the twin suns paint the valley in gold and amber light, he barely recognized the man he had been. That desperate rancher who measured success by mere survival seemed like a stranger now, someone from a different lifetime. The valley had transformed into something beyond his original dreams. Fields stretched to distant mountains, each section growing different crops in careful rotation. Herds of cattle grazed peacefully, their numbers grown from the original 200 to over 2,000. Processing facilities hummed with activity, preparing products for export to a dozen colony worlds. Student housing accommodated 100 young people each season, all learning the methods that had made New Mesa famous. But the real transformation was not in the land or the facilities. It was in the community that had grown here. Apache families lived alongside colonists from Earth, Mars, Europa, and worlds Jack had never heard of before. Children played together, learning each other's languages and customs. Elders shared stories that mixed different traditions into something new. People helped each other not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The valley had become exactly what Chief Redhawk had envisioned, a place where different cultures strengthened rather than diminished each other. Chief Redhawk appeared beside Jack so quietly he almost jumped. The chief had that ability, moving with grace that seemed impossible for a man his age. His hair was completely silver now, but his eyes remained sharp and knowing. "Do you ever regret your choice?" the chief asked. The same question he had asked years ago, but with different weight now. Jack considered carefully. "I used to measure my life by what I owned. Land, equipment, cattle. I was always coming up short, always failing by that measurement. Now I measure by what I contribute. The students I teach, the community I help build, the knowledge I share. By that measure, my life has more meaning than I ever imagined possible." The chief smiled and nodded. "You have learned what took me decades to understand. Success is not what you accumulate, but what you give. Not what you take from the world, but what you leave behind." Maya approached from the main facility carrying her son. She had married an Apache engineer named John 2 years ago, and their family lived on the ranch permanently now. The boy was almost 1 year old, already trying to walk on unsteady legs. Maya had managed to balance motherhood with her work as the colony's head agricultural scientist, a testament to the community support that made such things possible. "Father," Maya said, "the council has reached their decision. They want to discuss it with both of you." They walked together to the ranch's meeting room, a circular space with windows overlooking the valley. Luna waited there along with several council members who had traveled from the northern settlements. Everyone looked excited, almost nervous. Helen Whitehorse, still keeper of agricultural programs despite her advancing age, spoke first. "Jack Cooper, 5 years ago we took a chance on you. We gave you resources and trust based on nothing but character demonstrated in one moment of crisis. You have exceeded every expectation we had." Joseph Blackbear continued. "The Valley Ranch produces 40% more than projected. The educational program has trained over 800 students who carry our methods to other worlds. 7 more agricultural centers have been established using this model, all thriving. The Galactic Council has recognized our work as a template for sustainable human expansion." Chief Redhawk stepped forward. "The Council has received a request from the Galactic Frontier Development Committee. They want to expand the New Mesa model to 7 additional colony worlds. Each world will establish multiple agricultural centers based on what we have built here. The program will require extensive oversight, coordination between different colonies, and training for hundreds of managers." He paused, letting the scope of the project sink in. "They are asking you to oversee the entire program. You would travel to these worlds, help select sites, train managers, ensure each center maintains the principles that make this work. It is an enormous responsibility." Jack felt that familiar overwhelm rising. 7 worlds, hundreds of people. The weight of ensuring an entire program succeeded across multiple star systems. It was too much. He was just a farmer who got lucky, but then he looked around the room. At Chief Redhawk, who had seen potential in a desperate rancher. At Maya, who had become his partner in every sense. At Luna, who had shown him the joy of teaching. At the council members who had invested their trust and resources. At the valley visible through the windows, proof that the impossible could become real. He thought about the cliff again. That moment when calculation said to wait and instinct said to act. He had not been qualified to attempt that rescue either. He had just been someone who refused to stand by while people needed help. Maybe this was the same. Not about being qualified, but about being willing to try. "I will do it," Jack said quietly. "But only if we do it together." This was never about me alone. It has always been about community, about what we can accomplish through partnership. I need help from everyone in this room and many more people. Chief Red Hawk placed his hand on Jack's shoulder, that gesture that had become a symbol of acceptance and trust. "Of course. We build together or not at all. You will have all the support we can provide. Teams of specialists, communication networks, resources, everything necessary to succeed." Maya spoke up. "I will help coordinate the agricultural science across all sites. Luna will design the educational programs. We already have volunteers from every Apache settlement ready to be part of this expansion." Luna added, "The students we have trained want to be involved. Many have asked specifically to help establish new centers. You have inspired an entire generation, Jack. They want to build what you have built." Over the following weeks, planning consumed Jack's time. He studied the 7 target worlds, learning their climates and geology. He interviewed potential managers, looking for people who demonstrated the character and values necessary for success. He worked with Maya to adapt agricultural methods for different planetary conditions. He collaborated with Luna to create training programs that could be implemented across different cultures. The first new colony was on a world called Red River, chosen because its environment most closely matched New Mesa. Jack traveled there with a team of specialists and spent 3 months helping establish the initial agricultural center. They made mistakes, learned from them, and adjusted. The colonists were eager but inexperienced. Jack taught them everything he knew, passing on not just techniques but the philosophy behind them. When he returned to New Mesa, the valley felt like home in a way nowhere else ever had. Maya and their son were waiting at the landing platform. Jack held his family close and realized how much his life had changed. He had a partner who understood him completely, a son who would grow up in a community that valued contribution over competition, a purpose that gave meaning to every day. The other 6 worlds followed over the next 2 years. Jack traveled to each, spending months helping establish centers and train managers. Some worlds were easier than others. Some colonists grasped the concepts immediately while others struggled. But slowly, carefully, the network of agricultural centers grew. Each one became a community hub, a place where people learned not just farming but the values of sustainability and cooperation. News of the expansion spread throughout human space and beyond. Other species began requesting similar programs on their colony worlds. The Zentari wanted to understand how emotions could produce better outcomes than pure logic. The Vryn wanted to teach their young warriors about building instead of conquering. The Corin wanted to expand the model to joint colonies where multiple species worked together. Jack found himself meeting with alien representatives, sharing what New Mesa had taught him. It was strange and wonderful, being asked for advice by beings who had been traveling the stars when humanity still lived in caves. But they listened to him because results spoke louder than credentials. The numbers were clear. Communities built on New Mesa principles thrived, while those built on exploitation struggled. One evening, 10 years after the cliff rescue, Jack stood with Chief Red Hawk looking out over the valley. The twin moons were rising, casting silver light across fields heavy with crops ready for harvest. In the distance, students gathered around a bonfire, their voices carrying on the wind. The sounds were a mix of languages and traditions, a symphony of different cultures finding harmony. The chief spoke quietly. "Do you remember what I told you in the medical facility? That when you went down that cliff, you revealed who you truly were. Everything that followed was simply allowing that truth to flourish." Jack nodded. "I remember. I did not believe you then. I thought you were seeing things that were not there." The chief smiled. "And now?" Jack thought about everything that had happened. The valley ranch that fed thousands, the students who carried these methods to dozens of worlds, the partnerships with alien species,